Good evening, everyone. This is C2P News, and I'm your host, Mr. Anubis. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we will be giving you the latest updates from the Russia Ukraine war, growing global concerns about a security, voting rights in Louisiana and the United States, local news updates for the 70535 area in Opelousas and St. Landry Parish, and your local weather forecast. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this broadcast so others can stay informed about the events shaping our world. Tonight's broadcast will cover several things that I mentioned before. All right, we're going to start with a global war alert about Iran, Israel, and the United States. The conflict involving Iran, Israel, and the United States has entered its third week of active military operations as of March 15th, 2026. The war began on February 28th, 2026, when Israeli and U.S. forces carried out coordinated strikes on Iranian military infrastructure, following months of escalating tensions over Iran's nuclear program. The first wave of attacks reportedly targeted missile production facilities, air defense systems, and command centers near Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz. Since the initial strike, the conflict has escalated dramatically. Iran has launched hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones towards Israeli territory in retaliation. According to Israeli defense officials, more than 290 ballistic missiles and over 500 drones have been fired since the war began. Many were intercepted by Israelis' multi-layer air defense system, including Israel's Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow missile defense systems. However, several missiles have penetrated defenses and struck civilian areas. The Beit Shemesh attack, one of the deadliest civilian incidents on March 1st, 2026 at approximately 3:20 a.m. local time, when an Iranian ballistic missile struck a residential area in Beit Shemesh. Beit Shemesh is located about 30 kilometers west of Jerusalem in central Israel. The missile impacted near a synagogue complex that included an underground shelter. Emergency services reported 9 civilians killed, approximately 45 civilians injured. Several apartment buildings and nearby homes were heavily damaged in the blast. Israeli emergency responders described the scene as one of the most devastating civilian strikes since the conflict began. Major U.S. strikes on Kharg Island. A major U.S. operation took place on March 13th, 2026, when American forces carried out a large-scale strike against military infrastructure on Kharg Island, Iran's primary oil export hub in the Persian Gulf. The operation involved a U.S. Navy aircraft launched from a carrier strike group, long-range cruise missiles, and precision airstrikes. More than 90 Iranian military sites were targeted, including missile storage facilities and radar systems. U.S. officials stated that the strikes were intended to weaken Iran's ability to launch missiles while avoiding damage to oil export infrastructure. Casualty estimates, current estimates as of March 15th, 2026, indicate Israel, 17 civilians killed, nearly 3,000 civilians injured, 2 Israeli soldiers killed. The United States has 14 U.S. service members killed, approximately 200 military personnel injured. In Iran, Iranian authorities claim that over 1,300 civilians have been killed since the war began due to airstrikes and missile attacks. Independent verification of these numbers remains difficult because many areas remain under military control. The United States has increased its military presence across the Middle East in response to the conflict. Current deployments include aircraft carrier strike groups in the Persian Gulf, U.S. Air Force units operating from bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, Additional Patriot and THAAD missile defense systems deployed to protect allied nations. On March 13, 2026, a U.S. Air Force KC-135 aerial refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq, killing 6 American service members. The Pentagon confirmed the crash occurred during a routine mission and was not the result of hostile fire. Moving on to the war in Europe, Russia versus Ukraine, Russian invasion of the Ukraine turning now to Eastern Europe. The war began between Russia and Ukraine, which began with Russia's full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. It has now entered its fourth year. Fighting continues across eastern and southern Ukraine. On March 15th, 2026, Ukrainian officials reported a large Russian attack involving 68 missiles, approximately 430 drones, targeting infrastructure and civilian areas across multiple regions. Casualties from latest attacks, according to Ukrainian emergency services in the Kiev region: 5 civilians killed, 15 injured. In Zaporizhia region, 1 civilian killed, 18 injured. Several residential buildings, schools, and businesses were also damaged. There's been territory changes. Although front lines have remained relatively stable in recent months, Ukrainian forces recently conducted operations that reportedly liberated roughly 400 square kilometers of territory in eastern sectors of the battlefield. Russia continues launching offensive operations along several frontline regions. The possibility of World War III. Global analysts say the world is currently experiencing multiple simultaneous geopolitical flashpoints. The 3 most significant include the Iran-Israel-U.S. conflict, the Russian-Ukraine war. Military historians often note that global conflicts can begin when regional wars expand through alliances and strategic miscalculations. For this reason, international diplomatic efforts are focused on preventing further escalation. There's a nuclear war risk. Defense experts continue to monitor nuclear escalation risks. Potential scenarios include escalation between Israel and Iran, Russian use of tactical nuclear weapons if the battlefield conditions deteriorate, and conflict between China and Taiwan involving the United States. Despite these risks, nuclear deterrence remains the primary factor from preventing nuclear conflict. Now, moving on to U.S. voting rights. Voting right case in Louisiana, Louisiana versus Calalis. Background of the case: the dispute began after the 2020 U.S. Census when Louisiana lawmakers drew new congressional districts. Louisiana has 6 congressional districts. Although roughly 1/3 of the state's population is Black, and one district historically had a Black majority, civil rights groups argued this diluted minority voting power. Federal court review. The case was reviewed by a 3-judge panel in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana, consisting of Robert R. Summerhays, Shelley Dick, Carl E. Stewart. The court evaluated whether the congressional map violated voting rights in 1965. A revised map created a second majority Black district. Opponents argued the new map relied too heavily on race. The Supreme Court review. The case is now being considered by the Supreme Court of the United States. The court's decision could determine how states nationwide balance racial representation and constitutional limits when drawing electoral districts. I'm sorry, guys, I'm tired. It's been all day compiling this information. Excuse me. Now we're going to move to the Epstein file update. Jeffrey Epstein, as of March 15, 2026. No new official document releases connected to the Epstein investigation have been confirmed in the past 24 hours. Previously released records continue with legal investigators. These records are connected to civil lawsuits involving Epstein's trafficking network and individuals associated with him before death in 2019. Now let's move on to the local news in Opelousas and St. Landry Parish. In Opelousas, local law enforcement agencies in St. Landry Parish have recently reported several arrests related to narcotics, possession, domestic abuse charges, and other criminal offenses. Meanwhile, the St. Landry Parish Schools District has approved to merge Opelousas Junior High School and Opelousas Senior High School beginning in the 2026-2027 school year. Officials say the goal is to improve resource allocation and streamline administration. Now we'll go ahead and hit you with the weather. Louisiana, residents in the Opelousas in St. Landry Parish area should expect warm temperatures around 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Thunderstorms are expected overnight with potential for heavy rain and strong wind gusts. Residents should monitor local weather alerts. In closing, this concludes tonight's global briefing. Thank you for taking the time to stay informed with us here at C2P News. And once again, I'm Mr. Anubis. And if you found this broadcast helpful, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the stream. Stay aware and well, stay well, and we'll see you the next time on C2P News. Stay tuned for your World War III updates. Stay tuned for your C2P News Countdown to Purge broadcast too. This is just your global news update for the evening, and I'm out.